We are going to the next story here about Donald Trump in Colorado. And I want to start this story by saying this. For just a moment, as we go through this story, I want you to try to put your political ideology to the side just for a second. So if you're a Democrat, put that to the side. If you're a Republican, put it to the side. If you don't know what you are, you probably already ready for this. And I'm asking you to do that because it is very clear to me that people who are against this tend to be a part of one party, and people who are for it tend to be a part of another party. I don't want you to think about it in those terms as we go into this story. I want you to ask yourself this question. Is what is happening in Colorado to Donald Trump, is that the right thing based on the law? Now, I know this might be hard because it's easy to try to go with your side, but I want you to think about it. Is it right based on the law? Let's go ahead and get into this clip here. Colorado has removed Donald Trump from the ballot. This decision came from the Colorado Supreme Court. What does this mean for Donald Trump going into other states as well? And what does it mean for any political candidate in the future? Let's go ahead and dive into this story here.
So we've actually just got some breaking news out of Colorado. We're going to stay with Christy Greenberg and Hugo Lowell to talk about it. The Colorado Supreme Court ruling that Donald Trump has now been disqualified from being on the primary ballot for the GOP. Again, this breaking news out of Colorado. Donald Trump, as we know, was fighting to be able to be on that primary ballot. The Colorado Supreme Court now issuing a 200-something page opinion that we've just got. And we're going to go back to Christy Greenberg and Hugo Lowell. I know, guys, you haven't had a chance to look at it. We're looking at it right now. It's 217 pages. But Christy, I want to start with you on this particular issue. This is not the first state that there's been an attempt to be able to disqualify Trump being able to be on the ballot. But what's intriguing about it is that it's now being done in a way where the judicial system is having a say in terms of whether or not somebody can be on a ballot. Your thoughts about what we're hearing coming out of Colorado at this time?
Well, it is an interesting decision because the Colorado District Judge, Sarah Wallace, last month, when she made her decision, she had a really puzzling decision where she found, based on the evidence, that Trump had engaged in insurrection, but essentially said, well, Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, it doesn't apply to presidents. He's not an officer such that it applies to him, which was a really odd result. So when that was appealed, I think a lot of people had been scratching their heads and thought the appeal was appropriate. And, you know, I haven't read the basis of this, but it sounds like at least the Colorado Supreme Court said no. Actually, if he engaged in insurrection, yes, he is an officer and the 14th Amendment would apply to him. It would be a perverse result otherwise to have it apply to members of Congress and others in lower elected officials and not to the president of the United States.
So let's go ahead and pause there before we get into the thick of it. First question. Was it an insurrection? By definition, was it? Not by what your feelings tell you, not by what your political party tells you, but by definition, was it? Because if it is not by the definition, then Colorado is wrong. If it is by the definition an insurrection, then Colorado is correct. But even if Colorado is correct, is it right for a Supreme Court to make a decision to remove someone from the ballot? And I want you to pretend for a second it's not Donald Trump. Let's pretend it's someone you really like. And what if that happened? My fear is that this can actually spiral. They can come up with different reasons to remove other people. What if they decide we're just going to take Jill Stein off the ballot? We're going to take Cornel West off the ballot. We're going to take RFK Jr. off the ballot. We're going to only make it so that the only people that can be on the ballot in this state is the Republican nominee and the Democrat nominee. How would you feel then? I know a lot of you want to support third parties. I support third party independent. How would you feel then? But again, do you believe, based on the definition, that it was an insurrection? Because if it's not, think about that for a second. We'll go on a little bit more here.
So it sounds like Colorado Supreme Court got it right in finding that this should apply to the president, and presumably determines that the factual findings of the district court in finding that he engaged in the insurrection were upheld. So it is a result that is interesting. It is a result that seems like the right result. The big question will be whether or not it holds, because this is surely going to the U.S. Supreme Court. And I have a lot less confidence that the U.S. Supreme Court will decide that Donald Trump should be disqualified from the ballot, given that conservative majority on that court.
Okay. Now I want to go to another segment here. The state is Colorado. Now, Black majority state migration contraband, long name, made a really good point. I want you to see this for a second. Never trust headlines. They are intentionally deceptive. Colorado is a Democrat stronghold that didn't vote for Trump twice. This unconstitutional action is irrelevant to the 2024 election. So just as a reminder, folks, Donald Trump did not win Colorado in 2020, and he did not win Colorado in 2016. In 2020, you'll see here, Colorado is blue. And in 2016, even though Hillary Clinton lost, she still won Colorado. So both Biden and Hillary Clinton won Colorado. I wanted to make this point just to remind you, it's not like Colorado was going to go to Donald Trump anyway. It has become more of a blue state. But would it stay that way? Right? So they think by doing this, this is actually hurting Donald Trump. I would argue I don't think it is. And I'm going to show you the next steps that they are planning to do so that this actually ends up helping Donald Trump. It seems like every time they try to find ways to take Donald Trump down, it seems like these decisions just help Donald Trump. That's the funny part. That's the part. All of the lawsuits against Donald Trump right now actually helped him increase in the polls. It didn't make him decrease in the polls. His polling increased. Now, Joe Biden has issued a response in reference to Donald Trump's ruling here in reference to Colorado. Shout out to Case Study QB for this. Listen to what Joe Biden has to say. It's interesting.
Well, I think certainly it's self-evident. You saw it all. Now, whether the 14th Amendment applies, I'll let the court make that decision. But he certainly supported an insurrection. No question about it. None. Zero. And he seems to be doubling down on about everything. Anyway, I've got to go do this.
But even to that again, so he said, no question, Trump supported an insurrection. But do you consider it to be, based on the definition, insurrection? I saw this morning on Rising, maybe I'll go over this tomorrow. I saw this morning on Rising, Alan Dershowitz was debating Breonna Joy Gray. Part of it was about this issue in Colorado with Donald Trump, and then part of it was about Israel and Gaza. But one of the things that Alan Dershowitz said is that if you look at the definition based on insurrection, that includes violence. So he said it actually wasn't one. Now, how do voters feel about this decision in reference to Colorado? The Colorado Supreme Court ruling on Donald Trump, it says 84% of Democrats approve, 8% disapprove. 48% of independents approve, 35% of independents disapprove. 24% of Republicans approve, 66% of Republicans disapprove. So again, this is people thinking about this in reference to partisan politics, instead of thinking about that question that I asked you at the very beginning of this segment. Do you consider it to be an insurrection based on the definition? Because if not, that throws everything out. That's why I asked that question. Now, they did actually interview voters in Colorado, and I want you to hear what some of the voters had to say. Let's go into this clip here from CNN.
We've been talking about Colorado, but we're not in Colorado. So the question is, what do Colorado voters think about the ruling that bars Trump from the primary ballot? Our Gary Tuckman, always quick on the draw, traveled to the state to ask just that.
This coffee shop in Douglas County, Colorado, goes by the simple name of coffee. And it's here where we have a simple question for customers. Tell me your gut feeling. Do you think it's a good thing the Colorado Supreme Court did that, or not a good thing?
You know, I'm not the biggest fan of Trump, but I don't think people should be taken off the ballot necessarily.
This man is a political independent in a very Republican county. So here in the county seat of Castle Rock, it's easy to find loyal Trump Republicans who feel the same as this man. What do you think of the Supreme Court decision?
I think it's unfair.
How come?
Government shouldn't get in that position to control votes for certain candidates.
But we did find this Democrat who says that's precisely what this court needed to do.
I think it's a great decision. I think that when you try to overturn an election, you don't get to run again. You know, we have a 14th Amendment for a reason.
Back inside coffee, loyal Trump supporter Tony Klanaris doesn't take this decision seriously. She thinks the Supreme Court taking Trump off the primary ballot is a result of game playing. Why do you think they're playing a game and not doing their job?
Part of the game.
And what's that game?
Not being honest.
But you think that Trump has been honest?
For the most part, yeah.
Her
See, again, this is partisan thinking.
friend concurs, saying that she feels
Outraged. Absolute outrage. That
Why were you outraged?
they're going to take away our choice based on their personal beliefs, because I don't believe they're speaking for the people.
But El Gray believes the justices are.
So let me just chime in here for just a second. I think the problem with this is the fact that it makes it look like the Democratic Party is that afraid of Donald Trump beating Joe Biden and Donald Trump becoming president again, that they're willing to go so far as to remove him from the ballot so that that's not even a possibility. So they're not giving the voters a choice. And to that, I say, if they want Donald Trump to lose, then let him lose at the ballot box. But removing him from the ballot, it cheapens it in a way, right? It's just like everyone knows that Joe Biden is doing so poorly. We all know that he's in some type of mental decline. We all see this happening right before our eyes. We know that Donald Trump is beating Joe Biden in the polls. We know that Joe Biden has not done well for the economy. People are still struggling. He has not handled foreign policy situations well. We have 2 new wars under Joe Biden. Younger voters are turning away from Joe Biden. African-American voters have been turning away from Joe Biden. So we all know this. We see these things happening right before our eyes. And it gives the impression, whether it's the intent or not, it gives the impression that they're trying to help Joe Biden win. And that's how a lot of people are going to see it.
She's an independent who has voted for Donald Trump, but says she won't be voting for him again if he ends up back on the ballot.
I agree with their ruling that he engaged in insurrection, yes.
So do you think it was the right thing to do?
For my state, yes.
Keith Raymond has voted for Donald Trump twice, but says this time around he's supporting Chris Christie. His opinion is more nuanced.
It's a complicated issue, but if the law is the law and the Supreme Court is stating it, we have to abide by it. Doesn't mean I'm a fan of it.
Many Coloradans are still digesting the court ruling. The varied opinions in this shop about Donald Trump, symbolic of countless discussions in this state and this country. Kelsey Nistel is a Democrat.
I think that what he did was unacceptable for our country, and we should face the consequences for that.
Jake Herman is a Republican.
I think if that was a legitimate thing that happened, if he was part of an insurrection, he would have been arrested. He wasn't arrested.
That part right there. See, that's the piece that people are starting to point to. And this is what I was saying in reference to the law. the point that he made there, if it was an actual, insurrection, I'd be careful how to say this on the YouTube. He said that he believes that he would have been arrested if he didn't, if he broke the law. Donald Trump has not been convicted of this. He's not been convicted. They may be trying to charge him, but right now he's not convicted. So we can't say that he's been found guilty. Again, we're just looking at the standard of the law, not what we feel inside. So how can they do that based on the January 6th if he actually has not been found convicted of doing so? This is what I mean when I say, let's focus on the law. Something we got to think about.
Colorado primary is March 5th. Omar, at least on this day, we did not talk to any fervent Trump supporters who plan on switching to a different Republican candidate on primary day if Trump's name is no longer on the ballot. Instead, what we heard from some people is they plan to write in Trump's name. But under this ruling, a write-in vote for Trump would not count.
Did you hear that part? Okay, so people have brought this up. They said, well, they can just write his name in. Notice what he just said. Under this ruling, a write-in vote for Donald Trump in Colorado would not count. So I did want to say that because I didn't want people to think that that was an option. Not saying you can't do it, but they're telling you it's not going to count. Now, there's something else that could be happening here that I do want to mention as well before we get to Vivek. I want you to also think about this. And I want you to think about donors. Let's remember, it was just a couple of months ago after Ron DeSantis announced that he was running. Remember, what was reported is that the donors had decided to get behind Ron DeSantis. Rupert Murdoch, who owns Fox News, had also decided to get behind Ron DeSantis. This was revealed when Tucker Carlson was removed from Fox News. That's what the donors want as the Republican nominee. As time went by, though, and Ron DeSantis wasn't really doing too well in the polls, and he's still kind of stagnant there a little bit, not performing as well in some of these debates. And they started to see, well, maybe Nikki Haley is who we should latch on to. Nikki Haley also is getting a lot of money from donors. I have seen a Nikki Haley ad every day. Every day. Okay? So that's another person that they could be leaning towards. What I'm saying is that it could be that the donors have decided to get rid of Donald Trump. Donors, billionaires, the military-industrial complex, corporations, Wall Street. It could be that they decided we got to find a way to get him out of here because he is still beating Joe Biden. We need to push forth someone else. And the only way that Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley are going to significantly increase in these polls and actually be some type of threat is if Trump is out the way. Just an idea, just something to think about there. And then there's this situation with Vivek Ramaswamy. Now, Vivek Ramaswamy, after this was reported, he actually has come forward. And he said that he himself, make sure I go to this really quick. He said that he himself is now deciding that he also wants to remove himself from the ballot in Colorado. So now let me pull this up because I think I had the wrong clip. Sorry. So make sure I pull this up. Okay, here we go. Now, make no mistake. This is a power move by Vivek. He's not polling particularly well. He was polling pretty well, actually, like after the first debate. But his polling numbers, they dropped, they decreased. So he's not polling well. At this point in time, Vivek Ramaswamy is not running for president. Vivek Ramaswamy is running for vice president. So it could be that Vivek Ramaswamy does see that this is a problem to remove someone from the ballot, and he does take issue with that. But it could also be that Vivek Ramaswamy is also trying to show to Donald Trump that I'm the person that you should pick for your VP. Sometimes two things can be true at the same time. So he released this statement. Listen to what he had to say after it was announced that Donald Trump was going to be removed from the ballot in Colorado.
They have just tried to bar President Trump from the Colorado ballot using an unconstitutional maneuver that is a bastardization of the 14th Amendment to our U.S. Constitution. This was a provision, Section 3, that was designed to bar Confederate members, people who switched to the Confederacy, from actually being able to serve. That's very different than what's at issue here, to say the least. This is a hollowed out husk of what the country was built on. The basic principle that we, the people, select our leadership, not the unelected elite class in the back of palace halls. That's old world Europe, not the United States. That's why I'm making a pledge today that I will withdraw. I pledge to withdraw from the Colorado GOP primary ballot unless and until Trump's name is restored. And I demand that Ron DeSantis and Chris Christie and Nikki Haley do the same thing.
This is a power move. Not just him saying himself he's going to withdraw his name from the ballot in Colorado, but also he is actually challenging Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley to do the same thing. So now it looks some kind of way. If they're not willing to do that, that can say something to voters. I am not a Vivek supporter, but this is excellent PR. Great PR strategy. It gets his name trending again. His poll numbers could increase. And also it lets Donald Trump know that Vivek could be a good option for his VP. That's how I see it. I see this as a PR. Pete said gangster move, whatever you want to call it. I see this. That's a great PR strategy. You don't have to like the candidates, but that was actually pretty smart. Just keeping it real. He continues here.
Or else these Republicans are simply complicit in this unconstitutional attack on the way we conduct our constitutional republic. I refuse to be complicit in that. I think what they're doing is wrong. And I think it's up to Republicans to step up and stand up with a spine for our country's future. That's really what's at stake. Whether we, the people, actually have a say in deciding who leads this country. Yes, it would be easier for other Republicans like me who are running in this race to say, hey, if Trump is sidelined, there's our opportunity. No doubt other candidates are probably privately celebrating with their corporate sponsors. That's not the right thing to do. I think the most useful thing that every GOP candidate can do right now is to join me in that pledge. I'll say that I will withdraw from that Colorado GOP primary ballot until Trump's name is restored. This belongs to the people, not to the unelected Democratic cabal of judges in Colorado or any other state. And I demand that Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley and Chris Christie do the same thing, or else they're complicit in what this security state is trying to do to shut down Trump. I stand by that, and I expect them to do the right thing.
Chess move. Nikki, Ron, Chris, are you going to be brave enough to do the same thing? He put the ball in their court, and if they don't do it, it looks some kind of way, right? Looks some kind of way. Now, there's a little bit more, something else that Vivek did announce as well. It's not just Colorado, because you see now California is considering removing Donald Trump from the ballot. Now, obviously, California, again, is a Democrat stronghold. Donald Trump didn't win California in 2020. He didn't win California in 2016. I would predict he would not win California in 2024. But the point is that this can become a trend. This can spread. And what if it does spread to some of those states, like those swing states that he's actually polling pretty well in? Vivek said now California is trying to remove Trump from the ballot, citing Colorado. DeSantis, Haley, and Christie should join me in pledging to withdraw from the primary in any state that removes Trump from the ballot. That's the only way to stop blatant election interference in the GOP primary. And he is retweeting this here from Citizen Press. Breaking: California Lieutenant Governor Eleni Konopoulos calls on the California Secretary of State to explore every legal option to remove former President Donald Trump from California's 2024 presidential primary ballot. You know, it's like a rash that's spreading. Now, they have already come up with a solution. You see, the GOP has already decided that there is a way around this. Go figure. They have decided that, okay, if California wants to take him off the ballot, fine. We will just switch to a caucus system, which will actually benefit Donald Trump more. I kid you not, folks. Let's go ahead and get into that clip here. I told you these things always continue to backfire.
Republicans rallying around President Trump after the Colorado Supreme Court booted him off the state's GOP primary ballot. The justice's ruling he violated the 14th Amendment by engaging in insurrection on January 6, 2021.
The Colorado Republican Party now threatening to switch to a caucus system if the former president ultimately loses a challenge at the U.S. Supreme Court level. This would be a very difficult challenge for the party. However, the move would allow people to vote for Mr. Trump in order for him to still earn delegates from the Centennial State. Tom Dempsey live in Washington. Tom.
Hey, good morning, Adrian. Yeah, this morning, frustration is growing among Republicans in response to this decision to disqualify former President Donald Trump from appearing on the Colorado state primary ballot. Not only could we see the Colorado Republican Party change the way it chooses its nominee, but even some Democrats are coming out saying that this could end up helping Mr. Trump. Now, one key thing to watch for in the days and weeks ahead will be similar challenges filed in multiple other states. The case in Colorado remains one of many involving the 14th Amendment and whether or not Mr. Trump's involvement on January 6th can be considered taking part in what's being called by Colorado as an insurrection. According to Lawfare, the nonprofit group, 13 states have pending cases and 2 others have pending appeals. While Colorado disqualified the former president from appearing on state primary ballots, 4 other states, including Florida and New Hampshire, dismissed similar lawsuits. Many fellow Republicans are rallying around the former president. Not only are his fellow competitors in the primary coming out against the decision in Colorado, Republican Senator Tom Tillis plans to file a bill aimed at preventing states from blocking presidential candidates from appearing on ballots. Texas.
Did you hear that? A bill aimed at preventing states from blocking presidential candidates from getting on ballots.
Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick took it one step further and even said President Joe Biden should be taken off the ballot due to his handling of immigration. David Axelrod, who once served as a chief strategist for former President Obama, saying, quote, all the legal challenges that have been thrown at Trump have so far helped strengthen him in the Republican primary as he depicts himself as a victim. Colorado will be the same.
I would not be surprised if, because of what Colorado has done, I wouldn't be surprised if more of the independent voters in Colorado come out and support Donald Trump just because of this. Even people who probably did not support him before are probably like, oh, screw that. That's messed up. And they may go out and vote for him anyway, just simply because of this.
Seems like kryptonite winds up being battery packs in the GOP primary. Speaking to reporters, though, President Joe Biden made it known that he believes former President Trump took part in an insurrection on January 6th.
Well, I think it's certainly self-evident. You saw it all. Now, whether the 14th Amendment applies, I'll let the court make that decision. But he certainly supported an insurrection. And no question about it. None. Zero. And he seems to be doubling down on about everything.
Now, since that ruling came down in Colorado, NBC News released a report saying that the amount of social media threats against the state Supreme Court justices have spiked, including posts with violent words, posts with personal information about the justices, like their office addresses being posted, as well as, messages involving pictures with weapons. And again, violent words. So again, a serious angle to this story as well, guys.
Yeah, really tense times we're living in. It's not even 2024 yet. Tom Dempsey, thanks so much. Thank you for.
Okay, so again, they're trying to find a workaround. They could switch to a caucus, which would make it eligible for people to actually vote for Donald Trump in Colorado. So I told you, like, these, whatever it is they're trying to do, it obviously is not working, and it's just helping Donald Trump. If the GOP does do that, that would actually help Donald Trump. That would not hurt him. So this is mad crazy. They would have been just better off just leaving it as it is, because like I said, it's not like he won Colorado anyway. It's a blue state for the most part. So to me, it doesn't make any sense. But it's not just Donald Trump. When we talk about removing candidates from the ballot, I just want to remind you, it was just a couple of weeks ago I told you that the state of Florida actually decided that none of the Democrat primary challengers to Joe Biden are going to be on the ballot. They removed Cenk Uygur. I always forget his name. This is bad. What's that other guy's name? Dick? No, Bill? Roy? What's his name? Why do I always forget his name? Anywho, Cenk Uygur, Marianne Williamson, and whenever that other guy's name comes to me, that's bad if I don't remember your name. That's really bad. I don't think you're doing too well in the polls. Thank you, Dean Phillip. Thank you, atheist dude. And Dean Phillip, they removed them in Florida, but now other states are removing them as well. Marianne Williamson tweeted this out. The DNC is at it again. We've discovered the Massachusetts Democratic Party intends to include only Joe Biden as their primary candidate on the Massachusetts ballot. That's my state. I don't know what to tell you, but it doesn't surprise me. It does not surprise me. She goes on to say, Dem Chair Steve Kerrigan's misplaced attempt at protecting Joe Biden robs Massachusetts Democrats of their voice and choice in the upcoming election. This action is a flagrant violation of the DNC rules and process. Goes on to say here, I have actively campaigned in Massachusetts. Secretary of Massachusetts has the discretion to include FEC filed candidates who've received national media coverage, which I have. We hope Secretary of the Commonwealth will protect Massachusetts voters from Mass Dem's attempt at circumventing democracy. So here's an update. Florida, Tennessee, North Carolina, and now Massachusetts. This is a pattern, and we cannot let it stand. So it started with Florida, and it spread. And this is what I was saying in reference to Donald Trump. First, it was Florida. Now you have Tennessee, North Carolina, and Massachusetts are not allowing any other Democrat candidates to be on the ballot. Now, I will say what I've said before on the show. I believe that Marianne, Dean Phillips, Cenk Uygur, all these people should be running outside of the duopoly. They should not be running through the Democratic Party. I told you time and time again, we all know the DNC cheats. They cheated Bernie Sanders in 2016 with the superdelegates. There was a whole DNC fraud lawsuit. The Becks, they were the lawyers that handled that case. Jared Beck wrote an entire book about it called What Happened to Bernie Sanders. You would think by now people have learned that you cannot do this way because the DNC picks the candidate that they want, which they're allowed to do, which was ruled in court by the judge during the DNC fraud lawsuit. And on top of that, when they told you that Joe Biden is going to be the nominee, that was also a cue to let you know they were going to do whatever they could to make sure that you would not be in the way. So I asked you at the beginning of the story to put your political ideology to the side. And I said that because I wanted to show you that at the end. There are some people who watch me are Dems, some are independent, some are Republican. But I wanted you to see it happens on both sides. at the end of the day, who wins? The donors. They're the ones who win. They're the ones making the decisions. They're the ones deciding who they want to be in the office. Big money talks. I don't know what to tell you, but I think this is a dangerous thing. I really do. Again, ask yourself that question. If we're looking at it by the definition and we're looking at the law, first you have to ask, is it an insurrection based on a definition? Then has he actually been convicted of it? And he hasn't. Now you see this is also spreading to other candidates. This is what I was trying to warn people about. I'll go to some of the comments here and then we'll get to the Epstein story. Miss G says this is terrible no matter how you feel about Mr. T. Oh, you call Trump Mr. T. Interesting. I pity the fool. Pete says Colorado is against democracy. Thank you for the super chat, Anthony. More like insurrectile dysfunction. You had to go there, Anthony. Marco says, even if he's off the ballot, citizens could just write his name in. Not in Colorado. That was something I wanted people to hear. Not in Colorado, you can't. Thank you to Georgia Freckles for becoming a Sabby member. Let's give Georgia a big whoop, whoop. And thank you for the super chat. Obama loves Larry Sinclair. I'm sorry, but I don't trust MSNBC. We shouldn't trust them at all. Any corporate media.